6. So now we get into the collective ones. Numerous people are born again and again as worms and insects. Worms which burrow, insects which crawl. It could also refer to aspects of ourself, these aspects within ourself which keep on going. That's what's meant by born again. We can avoid things by shutting them out, or we can just scurry along and keep ourselves busy. The countless creatures arise and fall in this creation like waves on the surface of the ocean. And the waves think that they are the whole picture. They are separate entities. They don't have any realization of their identity with the sea. So this is another form of conditioning, identifying with your very limited understanding of your environment, or very limited notions about your environment. 8. The weak human beings who, unable even to move about, die again and again. So one wonders what weak human beings refer to. Is it referring to people that are physically handicapped, or is it referring to mentally weak human beings who can't move about in their imagination? They can't actually consider there's anything different or anything more to their current understanding. They can't move about in that sense. Or is it referring to all human beings as weak? We're unable to move about in the sense that we're total victims to our circumstances. And so we die again and again. Our sense of being, we could say, is dying again and again. And then we've got those, number 9, those shrubs and creepers which derive their nourishment from the earth and grow on earth. So they don't move anywhere. They're completely fixed. And they're completely dependent. They're completely dependent on their immediate circumstances. And 10, this very world illusion, which is like a river that carries in its stream the countless sorrows and suffering. All these are the expansions of conditioning. So the understanding of the world as something external is also part of our conditioning. These are 10 examples of conditioning, and there's probably a lot more scope for consideration of them. Conditioning, or inner contact, attachment or self-limitation, is of 2 kinds, the adorable and the sterile or barren. The sterile or barren conditioning is seen everywhere in fools. The adorable conditioning is seen among those who know the truth. That conditioning which exists in the minds of those who are ignorant of self-knowledge, which arises from things like the body and which is conducive to repeated birth and death, that is barren and sterile. The other form of conditioning, which is found in adorable beings who have self-knowledge, arises from the realization of true wisdom. This enables one to avoid birth and death. The translators put a note here about this. The adorable conditioning recognizes natural limitations. For example, the eyes and the ears, etc., are limited in their perception. The fool's is self-imposed conditioning, and he regards the infinite self to be identical with the physical body. The word used in the text, namely samsakti, is usually translated attachment. However, attachment implies division and duality, which is limitation of the infinite and conditioning of the unconditioned. So this chapter has really been about attachment, which the translator understands as conditioning. And there's been this distinction between the conditioning of the fool and of the adorable ones. It seems to me to be an unnecessary distinction to make. This understanding of conditioning could be pursued in a little more detail. The translators used conditioning for this word samsakti, and later on in this chapter he carries on talking about conditioning, but there's a different word used, samsangam, which means contact, identification. It'd be quite good to get this into a clearer picture, and there probably are sources where you can do this. The Buddhists, for example, have what they call the wheel of dependent arising, or the wheel of conditioned co-production. It's part of their Wheel of Life image, and it fits in really with what's being said in the Yoga Vasishta. So I'm going to just look at this in a little detail. There's the infinite consciousness. There's consciousness which is infinite. Within that there's the cognitive process which categorizes things. This attaches names to forms and groups them together into categories. And these categories could be what we'd call sensory categories, for example, visual things, visual experiencing, or oral experiencing, and so on. And then we, along with these experiences, we come up with notions of the senses. What's happening then is the attention comes into contact with the supposed objects that we're experiencing through the senses. So this is contact. Contact is when we become aware of something specific. And from that, there's usually feelings. There might be feelings of pleasure, pain, or no particular feeling. Neutral feelings even. We could say that that's a pleasant feeling and we want to get more of that. Or that's an unpleasant feeling, let's keep away from that. And this is the basis for craving. With craving comes clinging. We start clinging to things, and that means we start pursuing things. So this is one of the ways we can understand this. So there's contact, and this is when the attention comes into contact with something, and this gives rise to attachment or clinging. So there's various shades of identification going on here, from the initial contact along with the emotional feelings, or the feelings of pleasure and pain. And then there's craving or clinging that happens. And this is conditioning. Vasishta continues now with this thing about adorable conditioning. The God who holds in his hands the conch, the discus, etc., protects the three worlds on account of the adorable conditioning. It is thanks to the same type of conditioning that the sun shines and the cosmic body of the Creator continues to direct this vast creation. And Lord Shiva too shines as a divinity on account of this type of conditioning. The gods that sustain this world and function in various ways are endowed with their faculties by this adorable conditioning, or self-limitation. I don't think this is a helpful use of the word conditioning. The word in this part of chapter 68 is contact or attachment. And at the bottom, the translator also gives a note. In this chapter, the real significance of conditioning is brought out, though the word used, again, is samsangam, which may also be translated as contact or attachment. It is identification or conditioning that is really implied. The gods are just getting on with doing their things. The liberated being is getting on with just doing their thing. We don't have to talk about conditioning in this sense. There's no attachment involved. So we shouldn't really be talking about conditioning when it comes to the behaviour of liberated ones.